Hey everyone, and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. Want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out for the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got a very big lineup of news to share with all of you today. Today's date is September 18th, 2025, and it's Thursday. Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Can't believe tomorrow's going to be Friday again. These weeks go faster and faster. Almost ready for the weekend. Hope you guys are ready as well. Let's get into the news. Lots to cover with this war update. And we're going to start out with a huge report out of Russia's Bashkortostan Republic, very far away from Ukraine. Ukrainian drone sanctions are continuing, and they struck another oil refinery again. Let's talk about this new report here on your screen. Huge fire erupts after Ukrainian drones hit Russia's Salavat oil refinery. Ukrainian drones struck the Gazprom Neftchem Salavat petrochemical plant in Russia's Bashkortostan Republic on September 18th, according to the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces. So another huge hit again. This is a picture of a major crude oil processing unit on fire. Huge damage to this facility. We're going to talk more about this story in just a minute. I've got numerous videos to show you guys today. We also have reports that Ukrainian Special Operation Forces also confirmed a strike at the Volgograd oil refinery in Russia's Volgograd Oblast, approximately 100 to 200 kilometers from the border of Ukraine. This is a Lukoil oil refinery that has been attacked before and recently was shut down, and we have reports today that it shut down again after being attacked. Unfortunately, no pictures or videos coming out from that area, but I do have a statement today from Ukraine's military indicating that they definitely struck that facility. We also have a fire map to show you that there definitely was a fire that broke out on that facility. Also, an electrical substation in Russia's Rostov region was set on fire and destroyed overnight. I do have a video coming out from that area. I believe partisan groups, or it could have been Ukrainian saboteurs, that set fire to a major electrical substation. Huge fire in that area just over the border from Ukraine's Luhansk and Donetsk regions on the southeastern side of Ukraine. And we'll talk about that today also, and then numerous other reports. So much information to get into with this war update. Let's go ahead and jump into the news, guys. Let's hop on over to X now with Max25. It says in 45 days, Ukrainian UAVs carried out 21 hits on 15 different oil refineries. Most of them completely or partially stopped work. This is going to be a map from Drone Bomber today. Okay, so unfortunately, Drone Bomber did not produce their daily map that they usually show with the trajectory of drones going into Russia, but they did produce this map that I wanted to show you guys. So 21 hits on 15 different oil refineries over the last 45 days. That is absolutely amazing. These are all the different pictures coming out from the different oil refineries inside of Russia that have been hit. You can see many of them over here getting deeper now, as this is where this strike is going to be today. It's this picture right here in the town of Salavat in the Bashkortostan Republic. There's also these other two refineries or oil production sites that came under attack near Ufa over here. We talked about this over the weekend back on Saturday. These were pictures of these strikes here. So these strikes just getting deeper and deeper into Russia. And we can see all the different targets that Ukraine has gone after just over the last month and a half. So very crazy to see how much attacks have been carried out here from Ukraine. And not only that, but very successful strikes. I mean, we're seeing these drones just really attacking these refineries almost every day. And this is causing a major fuel crisis inside of Russia right now. Now from Tendar, the Salavat oil refinery in Bashkortostan, currently Russia, which is more than 1,300 kilometers or 800 miles from the Ukrainian border, has been struck by Ukrainian long-range UAV. A column of smoke can be seen above the facility. The refinery produces more than 10 million tons in oil products. Just wanted to pull open this map. It's a little bit clearer of a map so you guys can see how far away from Ukraine this strike was carried out. I mean, look at that. 1,300 kilometers deep into Russia, this Ukrainian UAV struck this facility. This is a picture of a fire that broke out here on the site of this oil refinery, the Salavat oil refinery. So very big hit from Ukraine today. Now here's some video footage from Special Curse Cat. Salavat oil refinery was hit in Bashkortostan, Russia, 1,300 kilometers from the front line. Gazprom Neftchem Salavat has a capacity of 10 million tons of oil per year. So as you can see, a pretty large oil refinery over here that was hit, 10 million tons of oil processing per year. And yet again, another hit to Russia. We know like somewhere around 20 to 25% of oil processing capacity has already been shut down inside of Russia due to these strikes. This is only going to complicate things even further and create more oil shortages or fuel shortages inside of Russia, which we are continuing to see. I just showed you guys a new video yesterday out of occupied Ukraine. I think it's in the Donetsk region in the city of Berdyansk. There was a couple or a family that was driving around over there trying to find fuel as many gas stations are running out. And actually, I think that's in the Zaporizhzhia region, excuse me, not the Donetsk region. So that's in Ukraine. Now from Spravdy Stratcom Center, Russian oil refineries continue to burn even 1,400 kilometers from Ukraine. The Gazprom Neftchem Salavat in Russia's Bashkortostan adds itself to the list as the 14th refinery in 48 days. Absolutely crazy. We got a 9-second clip here with sound. You're going to hear what sounds like emergency crews showing up in the area, probably firefighters, to help put out this blaze on this facility. Take a look at this. All right, I also want to note that mainstream news was reporting that there was a massive explosion at the time that this facility came under attack. Unfortunately, we don't have the videos showing the initial strike. We only have videos that were showing afterwards. You can see something major was burning here. We'll talk about what it was that was hit. Yeah, so what we heard was there was a massive explosion right at the start of this drone attack, and I believe it was hit by at least one drone. Could have been more, but we do know of one major fire that broke out today. We can see here in the video. Now Max 25, AFU struck ELOU AVT-4 unit at Gazprom Neftchem Salavat, according to Cyber Barashno, and this is going to be an open source intelligence group on X. It says the plant carries out a full cycle of processing hydrocarbon raw materials and produces more than 150 types of products, including gasoline, diesel fuel, fuel oil, bitumen, polyethylene, styrene, ammonia, urea, etc. ELOU-AVT-4 is a complex of primary raw material processing units. So you can see a very critical unit, a processing unit at this facility was damaged and probably going to be destroyed. Looks like it's going to be this one here in the photo. They were comparing two different pictures. The one up here that was on fire and then also an earlier photo, and they're indicating that this is the unit right down here, the same one that is on fire. They're stating this is the ELOU-AVT-4 unit, which carries out full cycle of processing hydrocarbon raw materials, okay, and producing more than 150 types of products. So very big hit from Ukraine. This is going to be huge damage, and we'll see if they happen to shut down this facility here very soon for these repairs. Now from NOAA reports, overnight, Ukrainian special forces struck the Volgograd oil refinery, Russia's largest fuel producer in the southern federal district, with a capacity of 15.7 million tons per year. It accounts for 5.6% of Russia's refining. Early reports suggest the plant has been shut down. Okay, so we are getting some reports that apparently this plant shut down again after this strike. Last we heard it was shut down. It was going to be shut down for like a month. This was a strike that took place back, I think, in August or something like that. It was attacked numerous times and shut down. We never had full confirmation that it even got, completely back online. Maybe it was partially at some point. But early reports suggesting today that after this attack last night, it has been shut down, possibly again. Now from Visioner, Ukrainian drones attacked the Lukoil oil refinery in Volgograd. Again, the extent of the damage is not clear, although NASA satellites recorded a fire on the premises. So NASA firms maps were indicating that there definitely was a fire here overnight. So Ukrainian Special Forces Operation forces were confirming a strike on this refinery. Then we have confirmation from NASA firms maps showing that there definitely was a fire here, looks like on the southeastern side of the facility. Unfortunately, again, no pictures or videos coming out just yet. These are just preliminary reports. But if I do get that information, I will give you guys another update in another video later today or maybe tomorrow if that information happens to come out. Now, War Translated, the head of the Center for the Study of Occupation, Petro Andriushenko, reports that unknown good people set fire to an electrical substation in Dugino, Rostov region and burned it to the ground. Okay, so I just want to report to you real quick that we have been seeing over the past few weeks Ukraine going after a lot of railway stations inside the Rostov region, and a lot of times they go after electrical substations which are connected to these train tracks that supply power to the trains that transports Russian military logistics into Ukraine. This is literally just over the border from Ukraine's Donetsk and Luhansk regions. So this is probably what Ukraine was doing here if they carried out some sort of strike. It claims here it was a fire that broke out, so maybe we had Ukrainian saboteurs or agents that were over here, possibly partisan groups, setting fire to this electrical substation. Go ahead and take a look at this real quick. All right, so it looks like a pretty large fire that broke out here. I have a feeling what happened was the electrical substation was set ablaze. This fire started to spread to a field nearby, and now we have this massive field fire taking place over here in the Rostov region. So, very crazy news to report. It looks like Ukraine may be still going after some railway stations over here with this fire that broke out that was probably connected to another railway nearby. Now for military news UA, Gazprom Neft has postponed the start of scheduled repairs at the Omsk refinery as part of government measures aimed at stabilizing the situation on the fuel market. Gazprom Neft chairman Alexander Dyukov said, okay, this is a huge report regarding Russia's oil and gas industry. I feel like this could indicate several different things here. First, could it be that maybe they cannot even undergo scheduled repairs at other oil refineries that are still online that haven't been hit yet by Ukrainian drones due to the fact that all these other oil refineries are currently undergoing emergency repairs and they have to keep these things going at full speed ahead just to make up for the losses of these other oil refineries that are offline due to these strikes. And also possibly could it indicate that Russia doesn't have enough materials to even repair a lot of these due to all these other refineries going down for emergency repairs. There's probably a lot of resources allocated to these other refining units that have been destroyed at some of these other major refineries. This is also possibly indicating why they cannot even undergo scheduled repairs at the Omsk refinery. This is another major refinery that's deeper into Russia past the Bashkortostan region where the Salavat oil refinery was at today. So huge news that Russia's oil and gas industry continues to struggle. Now military news UA again, a verified source reports that on the morning of September 13th, improvised explosive devices were discovered on a railway section between Glazunovka and Malo-Arkhangelsk in Russia's Ural region during an attempt to defuse a second device that detonated, killing 3 Russian National Guard servicemen and damaging the tracks. So I do apologize, this Telegram post is not in English, but yeah, apparently a verified source that Military News UA was able to pull up was talking about how an improvised explosive device was placed near a railway section in Russia's Ural region. This is going to be just a little bit south of Moscow, not too far away. And apparently there was some Russian National Guard servicemen that were there to try to remove this IED, and it was detonated, exploded, and actually took the lives of these National Guard servicemen and also damaging the tracks. So it looks like maybe Ukrainian saboteurs or possibly partisans were also trying to destroy these tracks, and it looks like it was very successful and also took out some Russian servicemen. So huge news today. Now Max 25 in the Cherniv region. Russian armed forces struck a state emergency service unit. A rescuer was killed over the past 24 hours. Russia shelled the region 22 times, with 48 strikes hitting 14 settlements in the region. These were pictures coming out from the Cherniv region, going to be up in northern Ukraine, close to the border of Russia, where Russia's Bryansk region is at. Major fires broke out. Looks like we had some homes that were destroyed over here also. Unfortunately, we had what appears to be a firefighter or somebody, emergency rescuer that's lost their life in these attacks. Looks like we had shrapnel landing here all over the side of this fire truck also. And this is something that we've recorded numerous times. I think we just literally talked about this yesterday. We had firefighters being attacked also. I think it was down in the Zaporizhzhia region. So Russia does target civilians. I mean, Sergei Lavrov was just stating yesterday they don't do this, but yet we have another report here again today. We've got a rescue worker that has lost his life due to a Russian attack. So very crazy news up in the Cherniv region today of Ukraine. Now from Ukrainian Review, aftermath of the Russian attack on Bucha and Borispil district, Kyiv region. In Bucha, a fire broke out in a private non-residential building as a result of a UAV strike. So these were attacks in the Kyiv region overnight with drones also. And we've got lots of destruction here. Fire crews showing up on the scenes of different areas. Look at this home that was destroyed right here. And yet again, another building. You can see all these cinder blocks and everything from this building that went down after it was struck by drones. So very crazy, guys. Another huge attack onto Ukraine overnight. We'll talk about how many drones went into Ukraine here soon. Now, Vicegrad 24, Polish foreign minister sets condition for reopening border with Belarus. It says, quote, if the border with Belarus is to be open, there cannot be any packs of pseudo refugees pushed out by Lukashenko, said Polish foreign minister Radoslaw Sikorski during a meeting with Chinese foreign minister Wang Yi. Wang Yi hinted to Sikorski that Chinese authorities will have a frank conversation with Lukashenko about the situation at the Polish border, local outlet Newsweek reported, citing sources in the Polish Foreign Ministry. We are making a decision that comes at a high cost to Poland, but our country is forced to take this step due to repeated provocations from the Belarusian side, stressed Polish Foreign Ministry spokesperson Paweł Wronski. Okay, so now we know why Poland is keeping their border closed after the Zapad 2025 military exercise. They're putting pressure on China right now to go after Belarus and tell Alexander Lukashenko, the president over there, to stop sending refugees to their border. This has been ongoing for more than a year now. Poland's been having to secure their border because a lot of refugees are trying to flow into Poland from the border of Belarus. And we know that Lukashenko is ordering these people to do so, a lot of these migrants. So in order to secure their border better, they're trying to get China to go after Belarus. And what we heard recently is that there's a major trade flow that goes through Belarus into Poland on over to Europe. So huge companies like Shein and Temu out of China that sell a lot of products to Europe. This current trade path is cut off right now due to the border being closed. So that's what Poland is trying to do, utilize this to have China put pressure on Belarus to stop these refugees from trying to come into Poland before they open the border back up. So that's actually very smart for Poland to do that. Now, war translated, Polish Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz has arrived in Kyiv. Along with him, delegations from the Ministry of Defense and the Polish Armed Forces also came to the capital. Kosiniak-Kamysz plans to discuss with the Ukrainian side military cooperation, further support for Ukraine, and the security situation in context of Russian aggression. Okay, so we've got the Polish defense minister showing up in Kyiv today. This was pictures of him getting off the train in Kyiv and going to be meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky today. I think they already met by the time I showed you guys these pictures. And they're meeting in to talk about defense cooperation due to this drone attack that happened onto Poland last week on Wednesday, as we had roughly around 20 or so drones, Russian drones, that were crossing through Ukraine and Belarus on over to Poland and crashing into many areas. A lot of different cities were under drone threat. So they're trying to get more help from Ukraine and learn how to counteract these drones and destroy them, so that way they could boost and bolster their defense on the eastern flank of NATO. Also, Vicegrad 24, Ukraine will give Poland access to tracking systems for drones heading towards Poland, said Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Denis Shmyhal. So huge news. Apparently this was announced while we had the Polish defense minister showing up in Kyiv today. The defense minister of Ukraine, Denis Shmyhal, announcing that they're giving Poland access to tracking systems to track these drones if they happen to come into Poland again. So very good news, because what we saw with this drone attack, and it wasn't even that large. It was somewhere around 20 to 23 drones, I think. I think it was confirmed like 19. Apparently only 4 out of the 19 that actually got into Poland were shot down. And Poland actually held that as a success, but Zelensky came out yesterday and was actually stating that this was not a success. It was actually a failure because they shot down such a little amount of drones. You know, if 700 drones attack Ukraine, they'll shoot down 500 plus, 550 plus, or even more. They'll have at least 70-80% success rate in shooting down these drones. Poland had a very small success rate, considering they only shot down 4 out of 19 apparently. So that is good news to see. They'll be able to track these drones going into Poland. Now, from NOLA Reports, Lavrov claims Moscow is open to compromise on Ukraine if Russia's legitimate security interests and the rights of Russians in Ukraine are respected. He insists any deal must also include recognition of Russia's staged referendum results. Okay, so another crazy statement coming out from Sergei Lavrov, just like yesterday, where he was stating that Russia would attack Western troops in Ukraine if they happen to go in, even as a peacekeeping force, after the war ends. So Lavrov now stating that, they're willing to compromise with Ukraine and end this war if they agree to certain crazy things again. For example, like this, where he says, include recognition of Russia's staged referendum results. So kind of stating that, is Ukraine going to recognize the territories of inside of Ukraine that Russia controls as Russian territory? For example, the Luhansk region, Donetsk region. We know that Russia held a referendum about a year or two or so after the war started, and they pretty much claimed that these territories are now Russian. But we know that Ukraine and Europe especially is never going to agree to that. So just yet again, another major statement coming out from the Kremlin, making demands to Ukraine that we know Ukraine will never agree to. Now, Max 25, the EU plans to propose its 19th sanctions package on Russia as early as Friday, targeting crypto, banks, energy, and Russian oil trade networks. According to Bloomberg, here's a report today. EU set to propose new Russia sanctions as soon as this week. Okay, so we heard yesterday from a German outlet, and I was kind of skeptical about it, whether the EU is actually going to unveil their new 19th sanctions package, but now Bloomberg is picking this up. This is a major publication, news publication. So it looks highly likely that by the end of this week, by tomorrow actually, we could possibly see the EU come out with their 19th package of sanctions. And this is what they're going to be targeting. So crypto, banks, energy, and Russian oil trade networks. So very possible we might hear about that maybe tomorrow, if not by next week. Now, Ukrainian review. U.S. Permanent Representative to NATO Matthew Whitaker says U.S. allies cannot demand that Washington increase pressure on Moscow while they continue to buy Russian oil. So now we've got the U.S. Permanent Representative to NATO Matthew Whitaker stating pretty much the same thing that Trump has stated. Also, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. They've all been coming out saying that Europe needs to stop buying Russian oil and they need to put pressure onto China, sanction China or tariff China to stop them from purchasing Russian oil. If not, the U.S. is not going to act and increase pressure onto Russia and impose any sanctions of their own. So yet again, another huge statement from a top leader out of the Trump administration, reaffirming that they are not going to move an inch on actions against Russia unless Europe does this first. Now from NOLA reports, Slovakia and Hungary push back against Trump's pressure to cut Russian oil and gas imports, saying they won't move until the EU finds reliable alternatives. Slovak Economy Minister Denisa Sakova warned that acting prematurely could seriously damage their industry and economy. Here's a report today. Hungary resists Trump's bid to halt Russian energy. Okay, so there you go. There's confirmation that Hungary and Slovakia are not going to move an inch in terms of stopping the purchases of Russian oil. They're going to continue doing so, and this is what Trump's been calling for, is Hungary and Slovakia to stop purchasing Russian oil. So what is the EU going to do to help out Hungary and Slovakia so that way they can stop purchasing this oil, or maybe force them to stop doing it? But apparently, considering that they're afraid that it'll damage their industry and economy, that's why they're not doing so. So what's going to happen here? We're not going to see any sanctions onto Russia or its trading partners if we don't start with Hungary and Slovakia giving up this oil, and then Europe obviously has to go after China with tariffs. Now from next, Europe suspects Trump is trying to trick it. European diplomats believe Donald Trump deliberately set impossible demands to sabotage new sanctions against Russia, Wall Street Journal reports. Washington is pushing the EU to fully stop buying Russian oil and gas and to impose tariffs on goods from China and India. For Europe, the strike's at a weak spot. Energy dependence remains a major issue, and a break with China, as Trump demands, would hit the EU economy hard. On top of that, all EU decisions require unanimity. And Trump's ally in Budapest has no intention of giving up Russian oil. Hungary and Slovakia have already said they will veto any measures threatening their economies. Brussels also suspects Trump may have commercial motives, namely trying to force Europe to buy more American liquefied natural gas. Here's a report from the Wall Street Journal today. Trump and Europe are at odds, over how to sanction Russia. So as we can see, this is going to be a very difficult situation. Is Europe going to be able to give up this oil and gas? Is Hungary and Slovakia going to do that? I don't think they're going to give in. I think they're too concerned about their economies. And on top of that, I'm sure they want to continue supporting Russia. We know they're very pro-Russian. On top of that, Europe, I don't know if they have the capacity to be able to sanction China. A lot of trade comes from China into Europe. This could definitely hurt their economy big time. And then that would obviously lead to Trump making some action against Russia. So yeah, it definitely looks like it could be a setup to really get Europe to start relying more on the US, especially with liquefied natural gas, as it talks about down here. There's probably some commercial motives there behind this move from Trump. We know that Trump is not going to do anything unless Europe makes a move first. So looks like we're going to be at a deadlock here for some time. Now, Max 25, the Australian government has decided to lower the price ceiling for Russian oil from $60 to $47.60 per barrel. Australia has imposed sanctions against 95 vessels of Russian shadow fleet. In total, more than 150 such vessels are already under Australian restrictions. So, huge news today, Australia jumping on board with the EU, imposing the lowering of the price ceiling for Russian oil from $60 down to $47.60. So that's big news. That'll hurt Russia's economy. And then on top of that, they have imposed sanctions against 95 more vessels of Russia's shadow fleet. So a very large number there. And apparently they have more than 150 vessels already under sanctions. So good news to hear out of Australia today supporting Ukraine. Now from NOAA reports, Zelensky from the front lines near Pokrovsk and Dobropilya. We're carrying out one of our counter-offensive operations, tough battles, but our troops have inflicted serious losses. 160 square kilometers has been liberated, another 170 plus cleared, 7 settlements freed, 9 more cleared out of Russian presence, nearly 100 occupiers captured, over 2,500 Russian losses, 1,300 plus killed. Ukraine is justly defending its land. I'm proud of our soldiers. This was Zelensky right here speaking, making this statement. And this was him on the front line on the eastern side of Ukraine in the Donetsk region down in southeastern Ukraine. This is an area we've been talking a lot about. The Russians made a breakthrough recently over the last month or so. Ukraine started to counterattack and break that offensive. And we're hearing that Ukraine is actually counterattacking right now. And actually, I saw a report yesterday that I thought was unconfirmed. And now, based on the statement from Zelensky, looks like it's confirmed. There was a map that was circulating on X yesterday that was showing that Ukraine actually was counterattacking in the area of Pokrovsk. They were attacking in multiple areas with several different corps. And apparently, according to this information, they are doing that. They are counterattacking around Pokrovsk right now, regaining a lot of land, taking a lot of Russian soldiers captive, and Russia is taking on huge losses. And just yesterday, Zelensky had announced that the Sumy direction up in northeastern Ukraine is actually secured. The Russians are starting to pull away from that area because they have taken on huge losses over there. So we continue to see this from Russia along the front line. They try to press forward and then they get smashed. They get destroyed. Ukraine cuts off their advance and they hold the Russians back. So Russia really is not moving a whole lot on the front line. I think the only area on the front line we're really hearing movement is going to be up in the Kharkiv region around the city of Kupiansk, and we talked about that yesterday. So very good news to hear out of Ukraine today. Now from Vicegrad 24, it says breaking initial reports about the debris of a Russian suicide drone having been found in a beach in Latvia. Here's a picture coming out today. This is a Russian Gerbera drone that was found on the beach of Latvia near the Baltic Sea. This is far away from Ukraine. How did it make it over here? And these are actually the same types of drones that were going into Poland last week on Wednesday. So I was thinking maybe one of these drones happened to fly through Poland, maybe crash into the Baltic Sea over there. I'll show you guys a map right now. But this was a picture of one of these drones being found, or a fragment of it, a piece of it, the back end of it being found here on a beach in Latvia. So I did pull up in this map here real quick to kind of show you guys where exactly this took place at. So we do know that a lot of the drones that were attacking Poland last Wednesday were crossing through the northern side of Ukraine here, especially over through the Volyn region, which would be over here on the northwestern side of Ukraine. And also drones were crossing through Belarus on the southern side and attacking into southeastern Poland over here, where Lublin, Zamosk, Sheshov, if I'm saying the name of that right. This is the area that was heavily under attack by Russian drones last week. But we did have a report that a drone made it as far as over here where Ablaze is. This is another smaller town up here on the northern side of Poland. All right, going to be right next to the Baltic Sea. So considering that we had a drone that crashed over here, reportedly crashed, that makes me think that there was probably more drones that got through Poland, and maybe one of them happened to crash over here in the Baltic Sea and then floated upstream over here into Latvia, one of the beaches over here. So that's what I'm thinking happened. You guys can let me know what you think, but otherwise, maybe there was a drone that crossed through Lithuania or something, or Latvia. We did hear that there were drones that were going through Lithuania around the same time. At least 2 drones were confirmed. And Lithuania Their authorities over there have been very quiet about the drones that are crossing through there. Not sure why they're doing that, but they're withholding a lot of information regarding drones that are entering and violating its airspace. So very possible it went through there, or did maybe it come from Kaliningrad? Who really knows where this drone came from? But regardless, it was washed up on the beaches over here somewhere in Latvia. So very crazy news to see that these drones are just getting deeper and deeper into into NATO territory, not Russian territory, and it's happening more and more every day. Now, Evgen Istrebin, the population continues to withdraw money from Russian banks with another 33 billion rubles as of September 17th. So I've been covering this story for a few days now that the Russians are actually taking out a lot of money from the banks. These are like normal citizens. So June, they took out 216 billion rubles. July, 226 billion rubles. August, 199 billion rubles. Then now from September 1st to the 17th, 236 billion rubles. So just yesterday, this number was at 203 billion rubles, okay, from the 1st to the 16th. Now in one more day, they took out nearly another 30 billion rubles. So the Russian people are very concerned about something. It says here in 17 days, monthly records for the past 3 months have been broken. So yeah, there's an ongoing bank run right now inside of Russia. No one's really talking about this. I feel like Evgen Istrebin, I've shown his post numerous times over the last few days. He's been covering this. Why is nobody else really covering this right now? And what does this indicate? We know for sure that all these EU sanctions are really targeting banks right now. So maybe the Russian citizens are really concerned that there could be a huge banking crisis inside of Russia. And it's only going to get worse as, Russia's oil and gas industry continues to be destroyed. The EU continues pressure onto their banks. I mean, more and more pressure onto the Russian economy. And at any moment, it could just implode. And people are worried about leaving their money in the banks. And this is probably they're most likely pulling them out. But let me know what you guys think. It's continuing to get worse every single month. We can see here with these numbers. Now from Liskovka, Air Defense Forces of Ukraine shot down or suppressed 48 out of 75 Russian UAVs. Missiles and 26 attack UAVs were recorded at 6 locations. Okay, so we got 75 total drones going into Ukraine overnight. We definitely did have some damage, as I reported to you guys, in the Cherniv and Kyiv regions up in the northern side of Ukraine. So yeah, it looks like they shot down a good amount. You can see here 48 out of 75. If that was Poland, they probably would have shot down, 5 or 10 or something like that out of 75. So clearly Poland does need the help. They need the training on how to defend themselves from these drones. So it's good to hear that Poland is getting support from Ukraine, learning how to counteract or counter these drones that come into their territory. So 75 total into Ukraine overnight. Now from Kyiv Independent, these are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of September 18th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. And here's our final update. Russia's losses as of September 18th, 930 troops, 0 AFVs, 122 vehicles and fuel tanks, 2 tanks, 33 artillery systems, 390 UAVs, 1 MLRS. Looks like that's it. So we're back to seeing another multiple launch rocket system being destroyed. We've been seeing at least one per day for a long time. Yesterday was the first day that we finally had a 0 here for this category. Artillery systems about average numbers here. Tanks and AFVs almost non-existent today. Only 2 tanks being destroyed, no AFVs. Vehicles and fuel tanks up a little bit today. We usually see about 75 or so on average, so almost double there. And then also 930 troops, about average numbers there also. So nothing too crazy in terms of fluctuations of Russian losses today. But I want to thank you guys very much for tuning in for today's update on September 18th, 2025. And I hope you all have a wonderful day out there. Take care and be safe. Let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.